it's that time, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We are doing this remotely based on the guidance that we've received from the governor's office in their state executive orders 2020-07 and 2020-18, as well as advice of counsel. And I would also say as a personal note that obviously this is an experiment in doing this, so everyone needs to be easy on Rick and each other as we try and make this work, and make sure that we're doing this, you know, we're effective as a group and that we're following the rules. I thought that since one of the annoying things about Zoom can be lagging based on, you know, your internet connection and the vagaries of the internet, that we mute everybody and then I'd call on you, or Rick would release you when you're ready to speak, so we don't have crosstalk just from the technology, which will make it hard on the people taking notes. So if you all won't mind that, Rick, I'd ask you to.
You can mute yourself too. We can all mute ourselves, and then if you call on us, we can unmute.
Okay, that's even better. Thank you. So Rick forwarded the agenda, and can I have a motion on the agenda?
I move
approve
that.
the agenda.
Were there any other changes? Rick, any other additions or changes?
None for me, no.
Okay. And I move that we accept the agenda
Do I have a second?
as presented.
Is there a second?
Sophia, you're on mute.
Looks like Rick.
Let me hang on a second. Bear with me.
Technical difficulties, it's about learning.
Okay,
here.
now I'm unmuted.
Okay. Are you making a second to the approval of the agenda?
Yes, I'll make a second.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank
Aye.
you. Then we have the minutes of our last meeting, which was March 11th, when we were together in the building. Can I have a motion on approval of the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I second.
Great, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Then the next thing on the agenda is public comment, and in the agenda itself, Rick has included guidance to us that we have provided an opportunity for public input either by email, and there are additional instructions on that. So Rick, have we received any public comment for tonight's meeting?
We have not.
Okay. All right. So we are, of course, open for public comment, but we have not received it. We will go on to old business, capital needs. Still interested in a list of, you know, our major infrastructure and the dates that it was last dealt with. Does anybody else have any other comments on capital planning?
No.
Know that there's been a lot of progress made on the HVAC work. My understanding is that shouldn't be a whole lot longer.
Great, super. And then the other thing on the agenda of old business is space planning, which seems kind of, you know, first we have to plan that we're going back in the building. So that seems like it's on the back burner. Am I correct in that, Rick?
I would say that this changes so many things. I mean, even temporarily, we may need to make some temporary space changes, depending on, you know, how we phase the reopening.
Right. To make sure everybody's staying far enough apart and that sort of thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, then we'll just keep that on the back burner till further development. So let's go on to new business and look at the check register. Rick provided that to us earlier today, I believe. I have some questions just on some of the big items. Rick, maybe you could just give us a little bit of background. Niche Academy is one of them, $2,400.
Sure. I wanted to, I'll pull up the check register first so folks can see that, but then I will show, and y'all see that?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so Amy's asking about Niche Academy. Now let me know if you can see once I switch. Can you still see this? Can you see what Zoom there?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
Niche Academy, this is what Niche Academy is. Niche Academy is, these are all tutorials for our resources and also tutorials just for some general applications. So if you want to know how to use Canopy, you click on that and it gives you a video. If you're more of a print person, you can do it that way instead. So it's well used after, you know, several years. We've had it for 3 or 4 years and it still gets used anywhere from 50 to 80 times a month, which was more than we thought it would. And we thought after a while it would just stop being used because people would have learned it, but it continues to get quite a bit of use.
Well, and on that point, have you seen an increase in use of our electronic resources so that this might be even more valuable?
Yes, absolutely. Canopy, for instance, in April went up something like 400%. Hoopla's up 170%. Everything's up. There are a couple of the databases that aren't really up, but that might be because people they are in school, but it doesn't seem to be all that demanding based on my child. But the movie and book resources and audiobook resources are all bumped way up.
And people are able to find this niche resource and use it.
Apparently, and now I thought it was kind of, honestly, I thought it was kind of hidden, and I'm going to share, let me just kind of share the screen with you again. So here's our home. Let's say you go to read, watch, listen. Tutorials over here. Click on tutorials. That'll take you to some specific ones, or you can look at all of them. And
right.
That's how you get there. But people are finding it.
Oh, very cool. Thank you, Rick. The next question I had was Gale Group in context biography database. So I assume that's one of the research databases that's maybe not being used as much because of the school situation.
Anticipating your question, I brought that up too. So this is a Gale in context biography database, and it's not heavily used, as heavily used. We're giving a lot of these databases one more year of a chance, and that is because we are about to start a new with a new tool called Patron Point. I've shared the demo recording with a couple of you. Essentially, what it is, it's a marketing tool, and it's a targeted marketing tool. So it pulls data from our ILS, our integrated library system, which allows the algorithm to see this patron watch or checks out a ton of history books, for instance. Well, we're going to push out some of our history related databases. We're going to push out some of our history related programs, et cetera, to the people who are most interested in that subject, rather than these blanket, everybody gets the same email. It's more targeted.
Right. Right. That sounds very.
So we're hoping that that'll make a difference.
Great. Well, and you know, I've been talking to you about the opportunities to promote our electronic resources in this time where,
Yes.
you know, people need them, you know. One more question before we go look at travel expenses. On the last page, Product LLC, Master Plan Project and Expenses. That's the space planning program.
Correct.
Question.
Yeah, that's, and we've gotten a, you know, we've gotten a final, some final drawings from them that our building committee, I've shared with our building committee. It's, I mean, I think they did exactly what the building committee asked them to do. And they look great, but you know, it's a whole new world. So we're going to have to regroup on everything, I think.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on the check register before we look at travel expenses?
No, those were the two that you asked about that I was thinking about too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same.
Great. Okay, Rick, I was hoping you could just quickly take us through, because you provided the additional documentation on the check request. If you could just briefly tell us, you know, because some of this is kind of pre-shutdown, some of it's post-shutdown,
Right. Yep.
you know, what actually happened and what you learned.
Yeah, let me,
So the first one's 1466.59, which was Fraser, Henkel,
Okay.
Nashville, ALA.
yeah, this one is a registration for the PLA conference and airfare to Nashville for Alex Frazier and Alyssa Henkel. So that was the conference held in late February, right before we shut down. The next one here is.
Okay, and are we, so just to back up, so did they do a report on some of the key things that they learned at the conference?
They did, and I have been trying to finish my report, which you can see right here, to you guys on my attendance there, and just it keeps getting pushed to the back burner, and I apologize for that. But I've received reports from Alyssa and Alex, and if you're interested, I can dig those out and forward them to you.
Okay.
But those, yes, they have made those reports. This was the $330 here is 30 of it was my registration for the ILA legislative breakfast. 300 was a registration for Robert Edwards to attend a conference in Springfield that was subsequently canceled, and we've been refunded the money.
Okay.
Another webinar that I attended for $49.
Okay.
So moving down to, let's see, this one dated 3/6, conference and travel expenses. So 663.48, 550 of that was for a webinar for multiple users. Let's see, 83.61 was hotel, pre-flight hotel for Henkel for $83.61. Rather than get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drive to the airport, she got a room there. $29.87 for meals in Nashville for me. Moving down to this one dated 1/29. $44.85. That's my registration, or excuse me, my travel expenses to and from the Central Illinois Directors Roundtable that was held in Springfield.
And that happened before the shutdown, right?
Correct,
So
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
This is from October. My travel expenses rather than registration to the legislative breakfast in Normal. So that's just the the mileage reimbursement, the IRS approved mileage reimbursement. So this one dated 3/20, and some of these, it's just they lag.
Right.
They're, you know, the credit card, and this is this happens to be one of those, I believe. No, this was my reimbursement check. So my travel reimbursement, I actually drove to Nashville, but since that is more expensive than flying, I got reimbursed at the $288 air equivalent, $58.65 travel to airport and back equivalent in Bloomington, and $34.52 equivalent to travel to airport and back in Nashville. So for a total of $381.17. The mileage would have been something like $430. So saved about $50 doing it that way.
Okay.
Right. So this is dated 3/12, more PLA expenses. So this is Alyssa's, Alyssa Henkel's, $255.96. That is total meals in Nashville plus $59.80 mileage to and from airport. Dated 3/6. Alex Frazier's travel receipts reimbursement $301.39. The travel to and from, or the travel in within Nashville was $37.24. Mileage to the airport $59.23. Her lodging the night before $47.60, and her total meals $157.32. And if I'm going too fast on this or anything, just so we can
Barrel through it.
this is, and Alex had underreported her expenses to me, and when I caught that, I asked her to submit the difference, which was $42.72.
Okay, so all of these relate to the ALA Nashville conference. I would be interested
Almost all
in
of them,
getting
yeah.
the reports. Yeah, but I mean, it's not, I know it's not a high priority, but don't let it slip off the list.
Yeah, I will get that to you. So this is a conference that's done every year for frontline staff. So Robert was going to go with 3 of his circulation staff. The total was $420.36. It has been canceled, and the check has been since been voided by the State Library of Illinois.
Okay.
So here are, these were on the credit card from Nashville. More meals for me to the tune of $39.79. My hotel, $785.18, and hotel for Henkel and Frazier, as they registered quite a bit later than I did. You can see that makes the lodging costs go up quite a bit. So theirs was $937.56 a piece. And
Well, and when you put in the report, you might kind of summarize all these costs in one place for the total cost of the event.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, you guys approved my expenses in advance, which came in significantly under. And I approved Henkel Frazier in advance.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any questions, any additional questions on the travel expenses?
No.
No,
Okay, then could I have a motion to approve the
I make a motion to approve.
the check register? Okay, great, and then we'll all have to say aye. Greg?
Is that Amy, just a point of detail, is that for both March and April check registers?
Um,
We didn't go through April,
We
right?
didn't talk about April. Should we talk about April before we make this motion then?
I'm sorry, I don't
Or just
have,
make the motion for the March one?
yeah, I don't have the April one. I'm sorry. I didn't get it printed off, I guess.
So the April one, can you see that?
Yeah,
This is April. We've got Most of
I had
the,
a question on the taped material, I think. Taped editions, yeah.
Well, the page before.
That the one you're
yeah, so the
on.
balance after prepaid credit.
Midwest tape.
You know, I think that's audiobooks. Let me check real quick, because keep in mind that all materials costs, I approve an overall budget in advance for the year, and the staff manages the budget manages the individual purchases within that. I don't, those are not ones that I sign off on. So that's TEI, Landmark Audio. Yeah, it's audiobook leasing.
Okay.
No,
What about Bridgeall Libraries Limited?
Bridgeall Libraries Limited is and that I can't show you because I don't have access to it. Let me stop sharing, but that's, let me show you on the, where is that? It's about 12,000, right? 13,000?
Yeah. It was up
12,500. Right in the middle.
I'm not seeing it.
bottom.
Oh,
Right at the bottom.
right here. Right here. So what that is through our, we get that through a partnership they have with Baker and Taylor, who is our main book vendor. And it is a tool that we've been using for a few years that helps in our deselection process. So it targets items that it recommends that we pull from the collection based on a variety of factors. What it's done is and that's a process called weeding, that we call weeding. Weeding is something that many librarians don't like to do, but is an absolutely necessary process. I mean, if you think about it for a few seconds, you'll understand that space being what it is, we eventually run out of space. So if we're going to keep adding to the collection, we either need to add more space or we need to deselect materials. This has took it from something that's been rather haphazard to something that's done very efficiently and on a regular basis and without as much staff labor involved. So it's made them much more efficient. It also comes with a discount, a credit on Baker and Taylor. I think this may be the last year of our discount. When we started the first year, we got a $9,000 credit with Baker and Taylor. The next year, we got like a $7,000 credit. It's diminishing each year. I think this is our third year. And it's like a $4,500 discount. So first 3 years, it's not as expensive as it seems. But after, I think next year, it's going to be, that 12.5 is going to be the real cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So have you learned enough from using it for 3 years that it's possible that we could do it without that tool?
Oh, I absolutely could do it, but it's too.
But if it's saving labor, like
That's
you said,
the key.
I mean, we pay for it in labor.
That's the key. The deselection and selection are the two most time-consuming things that a librarian can do. We've got another tool on the other side of it that we just started with that is helping us with the selection process. So and it uses a lot of a variety of factors such as geographic region. So, what books are either very popular and hot right now in the Midwest or are likely to be based on a number of factors in an algorithm. So it's not the be all and end all. It doesn't do the selection, but it is a tool that informs rather than reading review after review after review, which is what when I was a selector we did. You've got a tool that helps you out with it. And one of the things that we're trying to avoid and cut down is something that we call dead on arrival. We had something like 14% dead on arrival. So that's materials that we buy and they never get checked out by anybody. So, and I don't know what the national trend in that is. So I don't know what our target date is, our target number is, but we're trying to reduce 14%.
And what is the Dell Inc. one?
Okay, that is,
We have two for Dell, one for almost 3,000 and one for almost 18,000.
yeah, the 18,000 was for 20 new PCs for the, for public access. They were on their last legs and had 7 on them and old Office, and it was time. So the other Dell cost is because Matt miscounted. We needed a few more. So he was like, I don't know what happened here, but I'm short. So
And what's the expected lifespan of these computers?
4 to 5 years, maybe?
We've been getting more than 5 years out of them, but 5 years is typical.
Okay.
And he also loaded all the Windows 10 and the new all the new Office stuff on there. So
Okay, are there any more questions on April?
No.
Okay, so does the motion then cover both March and April check registers?
Yes, I make a motion to cover both March and April check registry.
Amend it, and then I will second the amendment.
Okay, and then we'll have to take a voice vote. Greg?
Greg's on mute.
He's
Aye.
doing so good. Aye. Samantha?
Aye.
Aye. I'm aye. And
Aye.
okay. Okay. See, it's learning process. It's good. Okay, great. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is to look at the budget report, which did I not pick up the right one? Because the one I have says through March. So
Yeah.
no, but I caught it about let's see, an hour ago. So I fixed it. This is through the end of April.
okay, so the numbers are the same. You
Correct.
changed the heading. Okay.
Yep.
So it looks like we're pretty much on track. I was a little, so I know that payroll in the past have been running behind where we were on the calendar, but it looks like now we're up pretty close to our actual calendar running rate.
That's because April was one of our 2-3 paycheck months.
Oh, okay,
So that'll balance out again in a couple of months.
okay. And, the things that you would expect to be every month, like the allocations and so forth, that looks right on track. Office supplies, we're not in the building, but are you working on projects here that's bringing that up to over 33%?
No, not really. I don't think in the last 6 weeks probably we've ordered any, but invoices lag behind.
Right.
Is there anything that you're seeing that like you won't, like for sure won't hit those requested amounts? Like, I mean, like travel, training, like those are things that.
Oh, well, the next document might
Yeah,
answer those questions on the if I can move to that.
Okay.
I mean, look, if you just look at this, I mean, we're in the world that we all until very recently inhabited. It looks fine in danger, but who knows what this new world is going to bring when it comes time to specifically collect the real estate taxes.
Right.
Okay, that's the great unknown. On my projection here, I'm still projecting that we collect all the real estate taxes. Will that happen? I don't know.
Well, and I think going forward that there's also very likely to be continued erosion in the EAV So that's,
Right.
you
So
know,
for next year and beyond,
Yeah.
that could be even worse. But
Yeah.
I don't know even if we'll have a full collection at this point. This could come down a little bit. The state replacement tax. My projection is based on, it's a really lumpy kind of disbursement, but it's based on the last few years and how it's come. It looks like we're going to do fairly well. So revenue, assuming this comes out, is pretty much right on. We'll pretty much turn out right on track.
Before we leave revenue, I've got a question for Greg. Greg, when the city council had their work session, the city manager was able to go through, and I'm not even sure who did it, but go through a number of revenue sources and look at, sales tax and then all the associated revenue streams like motor fuel tax that were likely to be affected. So what's your perspective on some of these items like property taxes and state replacement taxes?
Well, theoretically, the library's revenues, other than state replacement tax, in first opinion, should be relatively unaffected by the COVID-19 situation. The biggest revenue is real estate taxes. And the county clerk has recently, in the last days, I think end of last week, has worked with the county treasurer. They've approved the information, the extensions for property tax bills to be created and mailed out. I don't think they've been mailed out yet. But what I was told at the end of last week, they would be mailed out in the next days, weeks, with first payment due 15th, which would, by city's estimation, mean that the property tax distribution normally received in June would not be received until late July or early August. But we have no confirmation of any of that from the treasurer's office as of yet. And furthermore, there is no indication from the treasurer's office that there is any approved delay in people making property tax payments, etc. So there's no reason to believe there should be any change in those payment assumptions. Furthermore, there are two, and this was discussed at the council meeting. For what it's worth, there are essentially two ways that property owners pay property taxes. One is through a mortgage, where the property taxes are part of an escrow payment, and the second is where property taxes are paid directly to the treasurer's office. In the case of the former, where property taxes are part of a mortgage, it is our belief that those property tax payments will continue to occur from the mortgage holder to Macon County as normal, even if the mortgage holder has not paid the mortgage payments, simply because protecting for the lender or the mortgage company, protecting the interest in the property.
Right.
Because if there was a default, then they could still have title to the property or secure title to the property. So with all of that said, we don't believe that there's going to be a great negative impact in real estate taxes, which is a primary tax that drives the library revenues. As far as state replacement tax, that's an unknown. The state has recently sent out information that, or let's say, I'm sorry, the IML has sent out information that estimates there could be as much as a 30% reduction in state replacement property tax revenues. There's no confirmation that I've received of that from the state, so it's disputed at this point. The city's assumption at this point in time, based on the information we have, is that there'll be no negative revenue effect in personal property replacement tax at the current time. Those assumptions are subject to change, revision as we learn more information. But all in all, today, as I sit here today, I don't see the library's revenues negatively affected by this pandemic at this point in time.
Now, does the city talked about the fact that this pandemic may actually positively affect us because people are trying to move out of the cities? And we have companies like ADM and Tate & Lyle who may want to move their executives back here where it's a little safer?
I don't know how to answer that question. I don't have information related to that.
Have they like approached you guys and said, hey, we're thinking about it, or?
No, not to my knowledge.
I've talked to people up in the Chicago area and it's pretty grim up there compared to here.
And people, Sophia, that's a very broad question. If somebody from ADM who works up in the Chicago area that should choose to move back to Decatur or to Decatur, if they never were here before, where do they live? Are they living in Decatur? Are they living outside of Decatur? Where do they shop? So there's a lot of open-ended questions. So it's not. There's a lot of open-ended questions that would need to be answered to determine what effect that has on revenues. But I think, the short thing for me is as we're looking at things today from the city point of view, we don't think real estate taxes, property taxes are going to be negatively affected.
Yeah, banks do not want
Right.
Their property sold for real estate tax. Like, you don't want a $200,000
Exactly.
property sold for $4,000 owed on it.
The bank, if I'm not paying my mortgage payment and I'm not paying my property taxes through my escrow payment, mortgage company is still going to make the payment. They're still going to remit the taxes because the only leverage they have is if they don't make property tax payments, then they might lose the property in a tax sale. They're not going to do that because they jeopardize the security of the mortgage. So that's why I don't think property taxes are affected all that much. On the other hand, all the people in Decatur who own their properties, free and clear, no mortgage, they could choose to defer payments, delay payments. But the payment isn't going away. The taxes are still due. There could be a delay. We don't receive that in June, July, August. We receive it in September, October, November. The payment's not going to disappear. It's not going to go away. The taxpayers still have to pay. It may just be deferred. So the revenue will still accrue to the library.
Well, Greg, thank you for that insight. Appreciate it. Obviously, it's going to, as new information becomes available, we'll need to keep revisiting this issue.
Yes.
And I appreciate it. Do you have any estimate of what the proportion of mortgage company versus owned? That would be interesting. I'm sure it's
No.
the dominant is the banks, but anyway. Okay.
The short answer is no, but I would agree with you. I think the predominant would be the banks.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Rick. So we're ready to look at the expense side.
Sure. So for personnel, this is where we're seeing the most significant savings, and it's for a couple of reasons. There's a couple of open positions that we're, for obvious reasons, not filling right now. So we're looking at that. The other thing is, so when I estimate IMRF, FICA, life insurance, medical insurance. That's done by a formula. This is the most significant difference here on medical insurance. So that was the number generated by the formula, and so far the pace we're on would indicate we'll come in quite a bit under there, and also on IMRF. This is the 37.5 is on salaries is explained basically by turnover. I'm not sure if all of this is, but I'll take it. I mean, that's a good thing. So that's where most of our savings is coming in right now. A couple of numbers, and this gets to Samantha's question. So this could service to office equipment. Well, we get paid by the image. Or we pay by the image, among other things. There's a base that we pay for our copiers, but we also pay for each image. Since a whole lot less printing is being done, this may come in even lower. This is based on our current pace. We're not going to come in anywhere near that. I mean, it's we're not going to come in anywhere near that. My guess is that we will be seeing ILA announcement soon that's going to be canceled, which would have been cheap anyway because it was going to be in Springfield. So of course it's going to be canceled. And that's it. We don't have any more conferences. So this doesn't really account for the fact that there's not going to be a whole lot left. I believe here, I'll show you where we currently are in that cost.
Rick, I would just
yes.
encourage you that since all these functions are now not continuous functions, that there's a break between our past experience and our future experience, that you not use the rolling average method, but you actually look at these and get it more.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily use just an average. I kind of account for lumpiness, but this is one that is probably just going to settle somewhere around this number that you see. There's not going to be much left, except for the occasional webinar here and there. And maybe, let's say ILA does a virtual conference, maybe there'll be some expenditures there, but it's not going to be, anywhere near what we expected it to be.
Right. And so to make this report as useful as it can be,
Understood. Yeah.
Okay. But that's,
so, computer software, that one is an unknown. Okay. So this is the pace we're on, but given the increased demand for electronic materials, and now most of the materials are under the book budget, but as we look at things like curbside delivery, curbside drop off, there's software that helps us with that. So this number could go up, but that's our current pace. Professional services depend. Look, I just this afternoon I attended a 2-hour webinar that should have been called "All the Ways You Can Get Sued About COVID-19." I don't know. We haven't had, last year we had legal fees that were well in excess of our usual due to an excess of FOIA, but this year it may be high because I'm having to consult with Chris more frequently on issues that didn't even exist a year ago. The membership fees isn't going to end up that high. That's going to be closer to what's budgeted, and the rest of this is I believe is going to be pretty accurate. So telephone's going to come over because we added some things that I forgot to account for. Postage may end up actually coming in significantly lower than that. Office supplies, this is our current pace. about half of what we spend. And depending on how we reopen and when we reopen, that could continue in that vein. So I mean, we're looking at if things shake out the way they look like they're going to shake out, we're looking at a pretty good surplus again this year. And I've got some things I'd like to do, mostly personnel wise. But it's also going to depend on what things look like when we get back in here and how many get back in here and all that stuff. I mean, there are so many unknowns that, I don't know what to do. We have some potential retirements this year. We have, 4 potential retirements this year.
But it looks, at least at this point, that we've got a little room to maneuver, that we've got some cushion here that will help us deal with the uncertainties on both the revenue and expense side. And obviously, we need to keep a close eye on it and, have numbers that more precisely recognize the things you're already seeing.
Right, but some of the things that aren't showing up yet necessarily are, we had, since the summer reading program is going to have to be virtual, there's software that about that. There's that Patron Point marketing software. We just purchased an app for curbside delivery that we believe, it's a great price. It's $3,000 a year, and it's a Cadillac, as Robert put it when we saw the demo. It's fantastic. But all this stuff is going to improve services, especially in the current environment. But I believe that let's say June 15th. Governor gets on and goes, we haven't had a case of COVID in 2 weeks. Everybody just go back to your old life. I still think people are going to prefer curbside service for a while. You know what I mean? I think there's still going to be people who want to.
Have we bought PPE for that yet? I would consider that office supplies at this point.
Yeah, and maybe this is something that Greg could talk about. We've actually got a new, and I'm going to have to go back and recode some things. We've got a coding for COVID-19 related expenses, and we're hoping that some grant monies might be available down the road.
Well, okay, so let's leave these reports. Thank you, Rick. And could you, let's go to the next item, which is your discussion of where the plan stands at the moment. Unless, Greg, did you have a question?
No, I have nothing.
Okay.
So where the plan stands at the moment is, initially there were, I reached out to City Manager Wrighton, and he asked, I told him I asked him what he thought about curbside delivery, and he asked me to describe the service, and I did. And he asked, this was almost 2 weeks ago, he asked for 3 things to happen before we made any decisions. By we, I mean the board of trustees and library administration. Those 3 things are, 1, the complete text of the governor's order of April 30th be published. It hadn't been yet. 2, City Council, he expected the City Council to pass some ordinances that were COVID-19 related, which would have been the following Monday. So the full text of the governor's order has been released. The City Council took all of those COVID-19 related items off the agenda, is my understanding. I don't think there was a vote on any of those ordinances. So I called City Manager Wrighton back later in the week to talk about what his third request was. And his third request is he wanted to arrange a Zoom meeting between various public bodies in the area to sort of coordinate our reopening efforts and messaging. because I didn't want, let's say, I felt very strongly that the library could safely provide curbside services. I still didn't want to be the Lone Ranger. I wanted to, or to look like the rogue. If the city was going to shut down even tighter, I didn't want us to be beginning to open up. So then, in that period, the governor released his Restore Illinois plan. So City Manager Wrighton asked for some additional, before we had that meeting, he asked for some additional time to sort of absorb that plan and see where his thinking was. As of today, and then my two final steps were, of course, consult with the full Decatur Public Library Board of Trustees and ensure that we had adequate PPE and supplies in place. So I feel we've got the adequate PPEs and supplies, but we haven't had a full board meeting and I don't know whether you guys would want to make a decision at this point anyway without having that other meeting that City Manager Wrighton wants to have.
No, I think this is all, that there are other steps. I was just hoping that today you'd kind of give us a general picture of what you're thinking about as being when we go to the next step.
Absolutely.
What's the next step look
Absolutely.
like?
And so I'm going to do some screen sharing again. We've come up with, and Robert and I are batting around, we're very close to finalizing our plan for curbside delivery, everything but the when. But we also came up with a sort of overarching framework for how we're going to do this. Tomorrow, our leadership team is going to meet for as long as it takes to hash out the details of that plan. So we've got the framework, but not the details. So let me show you. Let's see. And I believe that I sent this to you guys some week.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is something that it's again, a general framework, and it has various pieces of it that we could actually sort of move around between different places based on what the situation outside is.
But hey, Rick, just cut to the chase. So what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that you're not going to open the doors up to let anyone in the library until Governor Pritzker and the city of Decatur, the mayor, the city manager, Macon County officials more open up the city and the state. But at the same time, you're looking at things that you could do to open up the library for services on a more remote basis.
Essentially, except the only thing that I would quibble with there is the term remote, because that's what that's essentially what we're already doing. This plan right now, we're in complete remote, so we are in temporary closure 3, fully digital. That's where we are. We don't offer any in-person services. So our next stage would be curbside pickup, curbside delivery. Robert and I have a plan here with just a few other points we need to hash out to get that going. We think that we can. Let me get back to where I was.
Well, in my mind, curbside delivery is no different than takeout from the restaurant, unless I'm missing something.
There's one key difference, but I think essentially you're right. There's one difference, and that's that like the bags and plates and whatever at the don't come back to the restaurant.
Right.
So we are told that what we're doing is an abundance of caution. What we are doing is everything that gets returned to the library is quarantined for 72 hours before it's touched. We don't touch it in any way, shape, or form.
Is that some state mandate or something?
Nope. Nope. But it's the IMLS and CDC.
Okay.
So IMLS is Institute for Museum and Library Services. CDC, we all know, and
So that's their recommendation.
they're saying 24 hours should be fine.
Okay. Okay.
They're saying 24 hours.
But that imposition is that competent authority's recommendation.
Yeah, they're saying 24 hours should be fine if somebody sneezed on the book.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But that is based on, and I've got the doctors' names here somewhere who've said that. That is based on their general expertise.
Okay. Okay.
What right now, there is a study that is going on with OCLC, the Online Computer Library Center, IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and a company called Battelle and the Columbus, Ohio Public Library. So Columbus, Ohio Public Library has donated, has given several actual library materials, books, DVDs, et cetera, et cetera. They have obtained, Battelle has obtained actual COVID virus, and that is going to be introduced to these library materials. And they are studying how long they last on those materials. So they can give us more,
They already have some guidelines out there as far as how long it lasts on paper, cardboard, plastic,
Correct.
metal. And right now they're saying cardboard less than 24 hours.
12.
They say
Paper about 12 hours.
yeah. So
But that brings up
but
other questions.
they have stuff. They have plastic things on the books. They're
Right, right.
who knows?
Yes.
We'd rather be cautious.
Right, rather be.
Right, and it doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt anything to do the quarantine, but it brings up other questions. Like when we open up to the point of browsing, I think there needs to be almost no cases. I mean, those are the things we've got to decide for. So if it lasts 12 hours on paper, what about a newspaper? So we've got newspapers that one person sits and looks at, puts back, and then somebody else grabs it, minutes later.
Okay, well, Rick, let's stay on this next phase. So I have a question about curbside. Are you anticipating now that you have this tool that curbside pickup would be by appointment?
Yes, that is my strong preference, but the appointment will be made by library staff. If any of you have used Kroger's Click List, that's a model that I want us to follow. So, in other words, you place your order, then Kroger contacts you and says, here are a couple of time frames, 2-hour time frames. You choose one, and it's going to be ready for you.
Right, so you're anticipating the same sort of model for this?
Yeah, there's going to be some differences, but it's going to be very similar.
And the order would be placed through the website?
Yeah, but we're going to consider taking telephone and email orders too, but those are
Okay.
a lot more labor intensive. So, it could be that maybe we can't do that. But there's the website, or once we get the app up and going, you can do it through the app, and you can do it with Alexa even through the app. You can just say, you can open up the app and say, search Stephen King novels held at Decatur Public Library.
Okay, but what would you have, so say this becomes possible in 30 days. So what will you have available to make it happen at that point?
Oh, we've already got a system without the app. We just feel like the app will make it a lot more user friendly.
Okay, I understand.
I think that if you guys, and obviously this isn't the full board, but if this was the full board and you said start it, I think we could have it off the ground in a week.
Okay. And you're saying that you're going to need more staff. You're going to need more staff. So maybe you can talk about that, how you anticipate that actually working.
Well, that's just it. I'm not sure I need more staff now, but
I mean, how you're going to deploy your staff.
yeah, we'll need more people in the building. Absolutely.
Yeah, more people in the building, I meant to say.
Yeah, we will need more people in the building at that time. And, you know, we're looking at ways that we can, you know, guarantee the social distancing. And when we can't, you know, masks will be required for delivery to, you know, to someone's car anyway. You know, unless we're at a point where, you know, governor and state and local officials tell us you don't need those anymore.
Well, let's deal in reality here. So basically you're close to being ready to go. If I can summarize what you're saying, you're close to being ready to go for curbside. You're waiting for additional guidance from the city manager and the mayor about
And county health. We have contact with them as well.
Okay.
So,
And have you thought about how you'd roll this out to the public, how you'd explain it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So first step, I mean, we could start in a week, but it wouldn't be ideal. Okay. So the first step would be, you know, well, two things. We want to get PRS staff or some PRS staff, programs, resources, and services staff to come up with the messaging, the signage. I mean, my experience with pickup is on-site signage is key. And also the social media, all that stuff. So the other,
I would say we'd want our driveway to be one direction in, one direction out too. Like, you know, our parking lot.
well, we've got, our plan is to have the north side for returns and the south side for pickup. And I think that should be okay for that, but we'll definitely look at traffic flow. We also planned it, well, the other key thing that I'd like to get in place before we get going is to bring at least some of the technical services staff in to start accepting orders of new materials and processing them. So we have new materials available for the patrons, because that's been basically on hold. And I'm sorry, I had another thought, another piece of this. And, we think it's important that the first at least week, maybe 2 weeks, that the people providing this service are the leadership team. We want to be the ones who are, for a couple of reasons, to show that, I mean, if we believe this is safe to do, we ought to be putting our money where our mouth is. That's one. Two, I think another good reason for that is that if there are problems and tweaks we need to make, I think we need to be able to assess it on the ground and see it in action and make those tweaks as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, thank you for giving us that update. Obviously, we'll be talking about it again. Do any of you have any additional questions for Rick on this subject?
No, I just know I have people in my family that'll be very excited for that to happen.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of communication from the public about this, and you know, I'm hoping that, well, I have every intention of next Thursday, when we have our full regular board meeting, that I have a plan to put in front of you guys. Now,
Okay.
the only thing I
That
can't
would be excellent.
the only thing I can't speak to is the when, you know, and I think that's got to be, it's something, you know, I'm not ready to, it's not a decision I'm going to make unilaterally. You know, I'm going to want to know that you guys are on board and back it, but I'm also going to want to know that the city officials and county health officials are okay with it. So,
Sure, but you know, I applaud your getting the plan ready to go. So as soon as it's okay, that you know we're
Right.
ready to take advantage of it. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business?
No?
Hey, Rick, do me,
Yes.
since it may be a little off topic for this meeting, I don't know. Give us the HVAC project, the air handling project, your comments about that. How are things going? Is it your understanding it's close to being finished? Because I haven't had a conversation with Johnson Controls in a couple of weeks since it started.
My understanding is everything's on schedule.
Okay.
And I had thought that we were about to an end a couple of weeks ago, but then I'm also told we're on schedule. So I must have misunderstood that comment from Mr. Lipka. But Robert and I talked to them briefly last week. I'm going to unmute you, Robert, so you can chime in here. But
Did you
I sent you guys
stop?
pardon? Greg, you've frozen up on me. So I sent you guys some information about the deep cleaning that's been done and the cleaning process. Mike Lipka, the building manager, gave Robert and I a tour with that in mind, but part of that was we went into the boiler chiller room and the air handler and talked a little bit to the contractors in there. I don't remember them giving us a firm timeline. Do you, Robert?
No, it was Pruitt, and I think they're finishing up. I'm not quite sure how close they are to finish, but he was showing us a lot of the work they've done with the air handlers, changing out the filters. They replaced some of the old mechanics, which was a good thing. So from Mike's assessment when we were there, that they should be finishing up. I don't remember him giving us an exact time when, but I can find that out from him tomorrow, I suppose.
Okay. I was just curious. Hey,
Yeah.
The other thing is, with the library closed, we had instructed the staff to do a lot of deep cleaning stuff. Your comments on that?
I sent out an email kind of detailing that last week, but I think they've done a bang-up job on that from what I've seen. They're still continuing to disinfect the bathrooms every day, all of them, because there's a few of us in here and they don't know which ones are getting used and which ones aren't. So they're doing all that. And Mike has been open to, all of our requests. But my understanding, and I've seen it in action, that there has been, disinfecting and basically floor to ceiling.
Yep. Actually, Greg, I think they've been great. I've had guys come in here and ask me, where were the people at today? And so they've been going to those areas and making sure they do the extra in the areas where staff has been working in the building, and also outside of, they've been doing the landscaping too. I forgot.
Yeah, that's gotten rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
An example is my door handle. I know it gets disinfected night after I'm gone, but usually during the day somebody knocks on my door and says, "Is it okay if I wash it?"
Right.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and they were doing caulking this morning when I came in. They were caulking the sidewalk, so I guess that didn't get done when they cut the sidewalks last year. So they're working on finishing up some of that outside concrete work and some of the things that they needed to do on that.
Okay, well, that was my next question. Is related to the library parking lot project.
Yeah.
I talked, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, to Public Works people. What needs to be done before it's concluded. And I was told, you know, they got to put sod down, they got to do this, they got to do that. What's your perspective?
Well, I think they're working, from what I saw today over on the north side, they're putting down the earth. They put down the first layer. Now they're working, looks like it was black dirt, and usually after that comes the sod.
Okay.
So on the north side, looks like you got that, you know, they got that. I don't know how far they've come since I've come in the building, but I know they're working on that. So after that, they should be putting the sod down, because I don't imagine they want to put much more earth on that before they put sod down.
Okay, so they're doing stuff, it's moving forward.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It
All right,
stopped
all right.
for a while due to all the rain, I'm assuming, but
Yeah, okay. All right,
No
next
idea.
question. Next question. And this is something that we started to discuss in the city is, and I'll be very specific to the city. Right now, just like the library, city offices are closed to the public. Libraries closed to the public. At some point in time, that's going to change. At some point in time, the library is going to open back up to the, okay? Question that I've asked my staff, question that I've asked Wrighton, question that Wrighton is asking his staff, is the library, and I bring it back to the library, is the library prepared to do that? And in that, when we open back up to the public, what measures do we have to take to ensure protection of employees and protection of patrons?
Right. And I
Okay.
think that's,
And so to that point, you know, to come back to the city perspective, we started discussing that in the city so that we can get out in front of things and we can start determining what those things are we need to do for protection of employees and public patrons. So when it comes to the day that the door opens, we're prepared for it. So not necessarily a question for you, Rick, but just comment to let's prepare for that.
yeah, and I feel like we are. I just don't think it's a. I think it's not a. It's this way today, and it'll be a completely different way tomorrow. It's going to be little by little. So yeah, and every time I think I've got a handle on it, I attend this webinar like I did today, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is. I felt like I needed an epidemiologist and a at the door all the time. And we've got some things that we're still debating internally, but as far as actual, so there's OSHA, there's and you know all this, but there's EEOC, there's the governor's orders, there's CDC guidelines, there's IDPH guidelines, and
But Rick, you've started that process with the matrix that
Correct.
you gave us. We talked about the right-hand side of it and the next step up, but you've
Greg,
you've
are you
at least thought through a kind of stepwise progression.
Greg, are you talking more like physical barriers, or are you talking more just like the plan? Because Rick he's got his different phases, which change, like everything changes.
And I guess I kind of thinking you go to the grocery store. There's a barrier now between you at the checkout counter and do we need the checkout counters?
I have ordered those.
Do we need that between the computer stalls?
Yep.
People use. Do we need those sorts of things anywhere else in the library? That's what, if bring it back, that's what we're thinking about and talking about with our staff within the city is as customers start, as patrons, as public starts to come back in, how do we protect them? How do we protect others?
It sounds like Rick is doing that.
And we're right there with you. We're having those same discussions, and we're interesting. The interesting thing about the last, one of many interesting things about the last few weeks is it's colleagues around the area we've been talking a lot more than we normally do. And so I have regular Zoom meetings with directors of Peoria, Urbana, Champaign, Bloomington, Normal, and Springfield. I have regular Zoom meetings with the smaller libraries surrounding us because they're looking to us. You know, they're looking to us for guidance, and not just me. It's also Robert and other staff members, other leadership team members. We're all attending webinars and things like that. I can tell you what I have on hand and what I've ordered. I have ordered gloves. I will not make gloves mandatory because I know guidance that says we should. I've ordered masks. Masks will be mandatory when we cannot guarantee social distancing. We've got the masks. We've got the gloves. We've got ample hand sanitizer. We have ample wipes. And as soon as we get a delivery, we're ordering more because we don't know what the supply chains are going to look like on this stuff. I've ordered from B&B Glass 10 of the partitions that you referred to that are mobile, so they're not going to be attached to any. They're not a fixture, so we can move them as needed to different areas, different service points around the library. Now we're also considering things like, will we close off the stacks by some sort of partition at some point? Will that be one of the stages? Up until the 1930s, this library didn't allow patrons to go in the stacks.
Yeah.
You know, you had to tell the librarian what you wanted, and the librarian went and got it for you. Well, we may be going back to those days, at least temporarily.
Or if you're like me, you just order it online and then the librarian has it ready.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking about curbside service for a couple of years. Had we instituted it prior to this, we'd be a step ahead. But
that would have been so awesome for me. I never would have had to get out of my car.
Yeah, but also here's what I heard as late as February 27th. I attended. Let's see. I attended at the PLA conference. I attended. Bringing curbside delivery to your library. Not that we'd have to, but one of the things that they said at that was, you know what, it's going to be a big hit with everybody, but hardly anybody's actually going to use it. You know, the statistics around the country, libraries who use it are big hit, but nobody uses it. Well, guess what? Not only are people going to use it now, I mean, Peoria had a madhouse their first week when they went curbside last week. They're going to keep using it.
Right.
There will be there will be a lag, even when it's deemed safe to do whatever you want. There's going to be, there are going to be folks who are either because they're at high risk or because they're just worried, are not going to want to come in the library. So this whole thing, library as space, that we've been talking about for years, and I just finished a book right before this happened called Palaces for the People about libraries as place. Well, that may be, at least for the time being, not as big of an issue. We're trying to anticipate what are the permanent changes.
Right, and on that score, I mean, I think everything that we're doing in terms of virtual resources, are going to continue to be super important to making sure that we fulfill our community objective. I hate to break up this party, but I feel like we're at the end of the agenda, and obviously we could talk about all the implications of this for a very long time, and I'm sure that we will. We appreciate your update, Rick, and I'm sure we'll get more information next week. Does anybody?
Good job, chairperson.
Excellent.
Good job, chairperson.
Yeah, we did it, guys.
Okay, thank you.
I make a move to adjourn if that's what you wanted.
I will
Yes,
second.
it is. Thank you. Thank you.